Understanding healthy social status. Let's get right into this. Now on the board, I have two very neatly organized categories. I have dominance and I have prestige. And both of these exist within all of us. Now, I find it very important to talk about this subject because social status exists. Whether you like it or not, there are forms of status that really influence how we get resources, how we mate, and basically a lot of our life. And a lot of the ways that we go about achieving status can be very unhealthy and very healthy. Now, my goal in this video is to show you some of the healthier ways to achieve status and basically give you a very organized and neat picture of really what that is. Now, I don't want you to think of dominance as a bad thing, which is very it's a hard thing for a lot of people to do. But really, it's not this bad thing. None of these are good or bad. I want to view these ideas from a very neutral way, just purely observing the fact that they exist, not attaching some shame to them, not attaching some moral philosophy about what's right and what's wrong. That's not my goal in this video. My goal is to just notice that these things exist and see which ones are healthier for the human psyche, which ones will basically give us a very deep subjective sense of well-being and overall connection to our life, other people, the world, things like this. Now, dominance, I got a little paper right here, a little paper I'm going to read off of. Dominance refers to control or power over others, often gained through physical or psychological means, whereas prestige refers to respect, admiration, or high status earned through accomplishments, reputation, or personal qualities. These two terms are not mutually exclusive, but they can differ in the way they are achieved and maintained. So we can actually have a lot of prestige and a lot of dominance at the same time, or little dominance and little prestige at the same time, or high prestige, low dominance, or high dominance, low prestige. And a lot of people can actually have, of course, high prestige, and then the way they go about maintaining a lot of that is through dominance. So yeah, there's a lot of varying combinations going on here, but really, I want you to notice that they both exist inside of you. And I really want you to be honest about how dominance most definitely exists inside of you, which is not a very heartwarming thing to actually realize about yourself. But if you can be honest that a lot of these tendencies exist inside of you, you will have significantly more satisfying relationships with people, which is extremely important for success in practically every area of life. Now, a lot of these drives are very subtle, and it takes careful observation, reading, self-awareness, emotional intelligence to actually uncover them. Now, I want you to simply observe whenever any of these things are playing out and not shame yourself for them. That's a very big thing because we like to view a lot of these tendencies with like a sort of shaming quality to them. Like you should be ashamed of yourself for threatening or manipulating. But meanwhile, we all have a lot of these tendencies inside of ourselves. So some examples of dominance. A very good one is the alpha male in a group of animals. Like, let's say a gorilla in like, a little tribe of gorillas. So the strongest and most dominant animal in a group or primates who assert their dominance over others. Let's say you have the alpha gorilla. And this alpha gorilla does, let's say, 75% of the mating. He probably has large portions of the food. And the beta, Charlie, delta gorillas do less mating. They probably have less resources. They're probably physically weaker, probably a little bit smaller, maybe a lot smaller. And really, this is just such a great example of dominance because a gorilla doesn't have, some prestigious qualities, really. I mean, it can have great hunting abilities. It can have empathetic abilities. It can really feel for, the young in the group. So really, it does, but not like a human. A human has a lot more potential for a lot of prestigious abilities, and probably even dominating abilities too. So, but I find this example particularly good because it seems relatively harmless to us. Whereas something that can be a little more controversial is something like social dominance. So individuals or groups who have power over others based on factors such as race, gender, or class. And military dominance, a country with a powerful military force that has the ability to assert its dominance over others through the use of force. These are all prime examples of dominance. Another very good one is, let's say someone is trying to strike a business deal and they are using some sort of intimidating look. This is a very minor thing, like they look at them in a very intimidating way with the intention of throwing them off, rather than actually having the negotiation skills to get the thing that they are trying to get out of the deal. So very minor things like looking at someone a certain way in a, like it might not even be conscious that this is happening, and odds are it's really not. A lot of this stuff is so under our sort of awareness, it's so just under the radar that, it's very hard to pick up on. So another good one would be, let's say, let's just say that a child is misbehaving and his mother, let's say, hits him or like forcefully pulls him aside. This is another good example of dominance and just all of these kinds of behaviors actually playing out. Because instead of having the overall skills necessary to help the child and really empathize with him and relate to him in a very functional, healthy way, instead what's going on is you scare the crap out of him so that he learns, and he most likely represses his emotions as a byproduct of that method. Now, once again, I don't want you to think of any of this stuff as bad. Just observe that a lot of this stuff really just exists. It's just existing, and we have to be honest and clear about it, and really not shame it. And actually, a lot of these behaviors at one point helped us to survive. Manipulating helps us to get the things that we want. Threats help us to get the thing that we want. Aggression and hostility helps us to get the things that we want. So the reason why we have a lot of these traits inside of us is because at one point in human evolutionary history, and even our personal life, we felt as though we have to sort of impose these tactics onto people or the world in order to get the things that we want. So at one point, this stuff helped us to survive. And basically what I'm proposing in this video is that there's something more that we can do other than just act like animals. And we all have a lot of these very primitive impulses in us. And unless we're honest about it, they're just going to stay there the rest of our life. There's no real way to get around this other than an honest, sincere approach, and basically really closely observing yourself and really radically changing your emotional intelligence overall. So moving on to prestige. Examples of prestige include academic prestige, so a university or institution with a reputation for excellence in education and research. Harvard probably being a really good example. Prestigious awards, such as the Nobel Prize, Academy Awards, things like this, that recognize outstanding achievements in various fields. Prestigious professions, such as doctors, lawyers, professors, which are highly respected and carry a high degree of prestige. Another one is social prestige, so individuals or families with a long history of wealth, power, or influence who are often respected and admired by others. Another one is cultural prestige, so some kind of work of art, literature, or music that is highly regarded by experts and the general public alike. Prestigious events as well, so the Olympics, the World Cup, the Oscars, which are basically widely recognized and accepted or respected. So a lot of prestige has a lot to do with developing some kind of culturally relevant skill within a particular context. And by culture, I mean like, let's say Canadian culture, all the way to like chess culture, all the way to like weightlifting culture, things like this. So if you go into a gym and you can lift, let's say you can deadlift 450 pounds and you're the only guy in that gym who can deadlift that, a lot of the other people are going to take notice of that and have, a little bit of respect for you. Like, this guy has really worked to get to that point, and it might get you a little bit of status. Basically just get you a bit of status, which you deserve. You've really been working to develop that particular quality. That's really nice. Or a workplace. Let's say you're a very competent manager. You're very organized. You're very conscientious. You're very on track. You're good at relating to your employees, making them feel valued, cared about, giving them the pay that they deserve, making sure that the relationships between various departments are solid, intact, the communication is clear. A manager like that has clearly developed a lot of very useful skills, actually, and might get a raise. He might get an even higher position because, he's really worked on a lot of these sort of qualities, like culturally valued skills. Or if we look at a chess community, Magnus Carlsen, he's the world chess champion. In a boxing ring, Magnus Carlsen probably doesn't have very much status, to be honest. A guy like Mike Tyson has a lot more status, whereas on the board, Magnus Carlsen has significantly more status. So a lot of our social status is also relative to the context that we're in. So in a chess club, if Magnus Carlsen walks in, everyone loves him. He's Magnus Carlsen. He's the chess world champion. Watch him play. He's fantastic. Whereas if he is in, let's say, the military, no one there cares about Magnus Carlsen. Maybe some do, but for the most part, I want you to understand that within that context, let's say the military, who we primarily care about are the sort of higher ups in the rankings, not the privates, maybe, I don't know, some high up general, for example. I don't know enough about the military to really say too much, but I want you to get that our status is very relative to the context that we're in. So let's say you go to one more. There's I think various meetups for Twitch streamers. I like TwitchCon, I think. So obviously, let's say I go to TwitchCon, obviously, no one cares. But obviously, if a famous Twitch streamer goes to TwitchCon, then it matters. People want to meet them, hang out with them, get autographs. But let's say that I'm, a very, competent employee within my workplace. When I walk in my workplace, I have some relatively high status within that context. So it's actually, our status is changing depending on the context that we are presently in. That's the point that I really want to say. So a lot of prestige involves developing skills in a context or environment that are culturally valued. So the workplace culture, chess culture, like I said, swimming culture, Olympics culture, whatever, the Olympic Games culture, things like that. And I want to talk a little bit about dominance now, because this is actually very, this is a very active thing within us. I really want to point that out, that things like manipulation, for example, wanting to take control of a situation to make it work in our favor, this is huge. We are constantly manipulating reality, other people, basically anything that gets us some kind of thing that we value. Let's say in a relationship we value having sex, for example. A lot of people manipulate their partner into giving them more sex. Or let's say, of course, a business deal. You want a better deal. You want some more money. You can sort of act kind of fierce, intimidate them, things like this. You can look for ways to do that. You can do there's really subtle things that people do. Like I heard one, I think I heard about one where I think it's someone's negotiating for a deal. And one of their strategies is just to remain silent, hoping that the other person gets really uncomfortable with the silence and just maybe says something kind of stupid or just makes an error. And he's just sitting there in silence. So it's see how it's just such weird, minor things that would really potentially just go unnoticed. and we're actually doing them. So I want you to be open to that possibility that these things exist in your life and that you actually do them, and we got to be honest about it. So dominance involves threats overpowering, aggression, hostility, arrogance, antisocial behaviors, manipulation, low agreeableness, low conscientiousness, and ingenuine self-esteem. So when a lot of these tactics are deployed, really it's coming from an ingenuine self-esteem. It's from, like, the emotional place that it's coming from is somewhat desperate to get the thing that it needs to survive. And that's actually a very radical thing. When you view it from that lens, that the reason why people and living creatures act like this is because they are doing what they have to do to survive, at least what they believe they have to do to survive, it begins to recontextualize the situation. Instead of viewing them as like, they should be ashamed of themselves or they're horrible people, we can view it from the perspective of these people are at a certain stage of psychological development where to them it really genuinely feels as though they have to do these things in order to survive. Even if they're completely wrong, even if they can completely stop using these things to survive, the way it is perceived through their whole emotional system, their whole mind, is basically that they have to do this to survive. Even if it's completely wrong. But that's just how they're interpreting the world due to their psychological development. So prestige now involves things like accomplishments, let's say getting an A in school, success, being the world chess champion, pro-social plus achievement-oriented behaviors. So a lot of success has a lot to do with relationships. Really, a lot of very pro-social people have a lot of potential for success. Obviously, antisocial people too. But a lot of prestige involves being able to communicate well. Things like this, like communication skills, emotional skills, empathy, actually caring about other people, not wanting to finesse them on a deal for another $10,000, but actually also caring about the health and well-being of that other business, as though it's like a living organism. So extrovert, of course, and really what I mean by extrovert is not like you have to go out and party all the time, but you can just develop some high quality social skills. You can properly listen. You can attune to the people that you're with very well. You're sensitive to the fluctuations in their emotions, the tone of their voice, and you can actually shift yourself to fit that context well and create a sense of connection to them. Empathic and helpful, that goes with extrovert. They're kind of linked, that's really what I mean. Agreeableness, non-dogmatic. So by non-dogmatic, I mean it doesn't cling to its particular beliefs. It's very open to other people, pretty accepting of other people. And it doesn't really push its particular belief onto someone, but it's just very open-minded rather than closed-minded and more fixed, like the dominance-related behavior. Moving on, culturally valued skills, like I talked about. Say cooking, if you're in, let's say you are, let's say you're in a kitchen. If I walk into a kitchen, like a professional kitchen, no one cares. But if Gordon Ramsay walks into a professional kitchen, everyone's like, holy crap, it's Gordon Ramsay. He's like a famous chef, And really within that kitchen culture, his skills are more valued than mine. Whereas let's say I'm a world famous, bodybuilder and I walk into a gym, I'm going to have a lot more status in that environment than Gordon Ramsay. A lot of people are going to value my skills more. So there's a very relative sort of aspect to this where it depends on the particular situation that you're in, and we have to constantly adapt and attune to the context that we're in. We have to take in what the context is that we're in. The workplace that we're in, the particular club we're going into, and see like what are some good skills within this context that I can actually develop in order to get the status that I need to, let's say, get the sex I want, get the relationships I want, get the money I want, things like this. Which there's nothing wrong with that, these things kind of just exist. And really we can rewire ourselves to get a lot of the things that we need to survive in a very healthy way. So a lot of prestige is also very correlated with satisfying relationships, because obviously this one is significantly more pro-social, and a key difference between these two is that dominance is more selfish. It's more like, I want what I want and damn the consequences, whereas prestige has a lot more to do with adding genuine value to people, so actually being a mass value provider. A good example of being a mass value provider is, let's say, YouTubers with large self-help channels. They add a lot of value to a lot of people who can potentially be struggling. Or even grocery stores. Let's say, I don't know, whatever a famous, grocery store brand is. These people give large amounts of food to large amounts of people. That is mass value production, because people find value in that stuff. Now, a lot of that food might not be the best for them, like, processed pork and, whatever, certain soft drinks, pops, sodas, things like that. But nonetheless, people do find value in that. So just because you actually have a lot of prestige, we also have to question, is it really ethical in, I guess, I don't really want to use the word ethical, but is it healthy for people? Like, we can say that, a prime example could be, I guess, like McDonald's. Hope I don't get sued for this. But, is selling food like that to large amounts of people, is that okay for the public? Is that like a healthy thing? And a lot of the foods that we eat, the entertainment that we watch, a lot of the algorithms on the internet are designed to prey upon a lot of our lower instincts to get us addicted to them. So you can clearly see that within organizations, there is prestige, like, let's say Instagram, YouTube, for example. There's a lot of prestige within these sort of, organizations owned by Google, Facebook, stuff like that. But there's a lot of stuff here as well. There's a lot of manipulation, exploitation, things like that. That just inevitably exists. Humans, we all have this inside of us. We all have corruption inside of us. It's inside of you and I. So genuine self-esteem and conscientiousness. I meant to put conscientiousness further up. But a lot of this stuff is actually building very good, I don't want to use the word good, but very healthy personal qualities that will help you to get the things that you need to survive, build satisfying relationships, and overall have a good sense of self-esteem. A lot of this stuff is related to the self-esteem needs that we have. I don't know if you've seen Maslow's hierarchy of need. That's a fairly famous model for human needs. But it starts with whatever it is, like safety, physiological needs like food, water, stuff like that. And then at one point it climbs up to self-esteem. All of those are actually basic needs. And all this stuff is correlated more with self-esteem related needs. So building a good self-image, having a good sense of self-worth, having a sense of mastery, having a sense of competence, things like this. And actively developing skills that are valuable to people around you and that you find a sense of meaning in as well. You can check out my video, The 2 Facets of Self-Esteem. That's a pretty good one for more on self-esteem. But other than that, this video is basically coming to a close. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, let me know in the comment section below. But other than that, take it easy.